Hello everyone, how's it going? It is Scribble from Unknown Copier, and to make things short, okay, so, to make things short, Mr. Beast made a video, called Saying Logan Paul 100,000 times, so I'm going to be doing a very similar thing, only saying Logan Paul 1,000 times. But yeah, I know it isn't as great, but I found I might as well do it because why not? We'll see how long this takes me, but yeah. So, yeah, here we go. Jake Paul, 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 Jake Paul. There's 100. Oh man. Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake 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 Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Jake, 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 Paul, Jake, Paul, Jake, Paul, Jake, Paul, Paul, Jake, 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 Jake, Paul, 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 and Jake Paul. Oh man, almost halfway through, guys. Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake 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 Paul. Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Jacob Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jacob, Paul, Jake 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 Paul. Oh man, okay. Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul. Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul Jake, 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 Jake Paul, 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 Jake Paul. Oh my gosh. Okay guys, 200 more. Let's do this. Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Jake Paul, 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 beat Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, beat Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, just Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake Paul. Alright guys, last 100. Oh my gosh. Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake 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 Paul, Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Jake Paul, 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 Paul, Jake 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 Paul. And that's it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. That didn't take a lot, but it took a lot. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.